Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. God, it won't even fit under the camera. I'm sure you could tell what this is already, but this is the Tamiya 1/48 scale Fairchild Republic A-10A Thunderbolt II, more affectionately known as the Warthog. And I'm going to tell you first of all why I'm going to build this. So you might want to settle down because it's a bit of a tale, and I know sometimes people say you talk too much. Well, if you don't like it, don't watch. Simple as that. In fact, actually, I'm going to have a little rant now. Here's the thing, right? Did you know, because I look at, obviously I have analytics for my videos, do you know more than 80% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel? Now, I have a little rule on YouTube, as a creator myself. If I watch more than 2 videos on someone's channel, I will subscribe to their channel, because I feel like I owe them that. That's just the way I am. But if you've watched more than one of my videos, greatly appreciative if you would hit the subscribe button. Anyway, that's enough of that. Getting back to this, I want to explain to you why I'm going to build this, and I think the easiest way is for me to show you something else first. So just wait there a minute. So in addition to the model that I just showed you, I also bought from a chap on eBay who goes by the name of My Custom Hot Wheels. I got these. Yes, these are Metropolitan Police decals. You already know where I'm going with this, don't you? But here's the story. Right? There is a friend of mine, a very, very dear friend of mine, who is a Metropolitan Police Officer. More specifically, he is a firearms officer. And obviously with me having been in the army, we do tend to talk quite a lot about guns and things. Now, he and I were chatting the other day, and we were talking about escalation. Now, I don't want this turning into a political football, so any comments that I don't like in the comment section will just get deleted, so keep that in mind. Obviously, the Metropolitan Police generally carried the Heckler & Koch MP5, which is arguably the best submachine gun ever made, bar none. But the main reason they had it was because it is 9mm pistol cartridge. And the primary concern when you're in an urban environment or with lots of people is over penetration. You don't want to shoot someone and have the bullet go through the person you're shooting and then hit someone behind them who might have nothing to do with it, which is obviously a good thing. I mean, not wanting to do it is a good thing, not doing it is a good thing. You know what I mean. Anyway, you may notice, those of you who live in London or have been to London recently, that a lot of firearms officers are now carrying the Heckler & Koch G36, which is a rifle, 5.56. And I was talking to him about this, and he said that the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in is that some of the, shall we say, more hardened criminal element have taken to wearing body armour. And that body armour is designed to stop pistol caliber rounds. So they carry the rifles to defeat that body armour. Okay, that's fine. So we then started getting a bit silly, as you do, and I said, okay, so what's going to happen when they start carrying AR-500 plate? Are you all going to be running around with Barretts? And we went on from there, and it was like, okay, what if they turn up in an armoured vehicle? Are you going to call in an airstrike? And that's when we got onto the subject of a Metropolitan Police A-10 Warthog, and he basically begged me to build it. So here we are. So I'm not going to mention his name because, as I say, he is an operational police officer, but you know who you are, my friend, and this is entirely your fault. So let's get on with it. Right, so I'll put the box to one side for a minute because it's massive. Let's have a look at some of these bits. I'm actually beginning to wonder whether I should have got a 1/72 scale because this thing is a beast. Right, so that's the canopy and the fuselage and whatnot. What's interesting, actually, I've already had a quick look at the plans. This bit here is a stand, and there's actually a bit, I don't know if you can see that there, there's a little bit there on the underside of the fuselage, and that's so that if you forget to weight the nose, or if you don't weight the nose enough and it tips backwards, you can put that on afterwards to actually hold the thing up, which I thought was actually quite a clever idea. Hopefully we won't need to use that. So let's have a look at this. I must admit, I can't remember the last time I actually built a Tamiya kit. It's been a very, very long time. I don't think I built a Tamiya kit since I was a kid. But that looks pretty good, actually. Doesn't look too bad at all. We'll have to see how it goes, how well it goes together. I am not seeing any flashing, which is nice. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other bits. Right, this is all the engines and bits and pieces and the tail. Oh, so many plastic bags. Right, we have got a pilot figure, which we won't need. Just so you know, I'm going to build this like it's on the ground. That all looks alright. Yeah, it actually looks quite nice. Right. Those are the wings. They look fine. Right, what's this one here? Right, it's all the engines and guns and bombs and bits. So that's all good. And what else have we got? Oh, decals. Right. We'll use some of these. So like the stencil ones, we'll put some of those on. But all of this kind of stuff, because obviously this is, you know, that's what I got the other decals for. But yeah, they look all right, so that's fine. Right, so I suppose we should make a start putting it together. So before we get started with the build proper, you probably gathered where I'm going with this just from looking at this. I had actually decided I wanted to put some lights in this thing, and so I was just putting everything together quickly just to make sure it all worked. And I thought it would be a good idea to talk to you a little bit about it first, so you've got a rough idea of where we're going. So what I've got here are two. Well, let me just see if I can hook up the battery, and I'll show you. I'll show you whether this is all going to work, because just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Right, hopefully you can see those. So what we've got are two blue flashing lights, because, you know, police vehicle, and we've also got three of these little tiny LEDs. Now let me shut that off before I short the battery out and show you what we've got. So these two are 12 volt, they're 3mm 12 volt blue flashing LEDs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one on the top of the fuselage and one on the underside of the fuselage. And then I've got these three. These are 0402 LEDs, and I don't know if I can actually show you that or not. That's absolutely minute, as you can see. Now, I've actually soldered these things by hand in the past, but these ones I actually got pre-soldered, and I got them from Wish, of all places. So sometimes things do turn up from Wish when you order them. And what I'm hoping to do is to use two of these for the navigation lights in the wingtips, but also I want to use the third one, and honestly I don't know if this is going to work yet, but I want to use it as the like the headlight that's in the front landing strut. I want to try and make that light up as well, but we'll try and figure that out as we go along. And so I was just thinking about, obviously I've got a lithium polymer battery, I've got a charging circuit, I've got a switch, and I was thinking, where am I going to put all this stuff? And normally I run the wires down through, like out of the model, through the base and into the bottom of the diorama. But then I was looking at where I'm going to put the lights, and I was looking at the fuselage like this, and I started thinking, and I'm sure you're thinking what I'm thinking, there's quite a lot of space in that fuselage. Enough space, in fact, to fit a battery and a charging circuit and a switch somewhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mount everything inside the fuselage. So basically the plan is this: I will need to cut a hole in the bottom of the fuselage for the mount, I will need to cut a slot for this switch. This is just a simple on-off switch, and that actually, you can see that very well, but if I put that on the inside of the fuselage like that, you can see it pokes through far enough that you can turn it on and off from the outside without being too obnoxious. But where I'm going to put the lights in the fuselage, there's a navigation light on the top, so I'm going to lose that navigation light and put one of the LEDs there. And then these two lights, these two holes, sorry, here, are for a weapons pylon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lose that weapons pylon, and I'm going to enlarge the front hole slightly and have the other LED there, so there'll be one on the top and one on the bottom. And then I think it makes sense to use this hole as a starting point to cut a slot for the switch to go in. So I'm going to do all of that before I actually start putting this thing together. It does give us one small problem, and that's the fact that if the battery ever fails, I can't change it. But to be honest about that, I think if anything the LEDs are more likely to fail before the battery does. So and yes, there'll be a hole in the bottom and a switch, but that's not the end of the world, and quite frankly, if anybody doesn't like it, tough. But so yes, what I'm going to do is I'll cut all those holes and things. I'll cut these wires down. I'll basically put together the lighting package as much as I can, and then we'll, because I'll have to modify the wings as well for the lights. I'll do all of that, and then we can actually start building the thing. Right, so after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, that's the light fitted in the wing. Oh, you can see that very well. So I drilled a 1mm hole in the end of the wing. I put the LED in. I put it on with a bit of hot glue, which could have been neater, but never mind. And then I've just tacked it down the inside of the wing. Fortunately, with this, there's loads of space on the inside of the wings. And what I'm going to do next is cut a little channel in this for the wire to run through to the inside. And I'll do the same thing with the other side. The one drawback to all of this is it means that I'm going to have to put the wings on the fuselage before I put the fuselage together. So I'll have to put the wings on, complete all the wiring, and then put the fuselage together, which is a bit of a nuisance, but it's not the end of the world. It's just going to make it unwieldy for a little while, but that's fine. We'll deal with it. So what I need to do next is get the other wing done and then solder all of this together. Right, so I am just gluing the wings together. So our first bit of assembly. Oh, I'll get the thing to go together. Oh, get in there. There we go. And one thing I will say while I'm doing this is make sure, and I have already done it, that you check and double check and triple check that everything works as you're going along. Because if you glue this wing together and then subsequently find out that the bulb's blown or something, you are going to hate yourself. So just make sure you check that everything is functional before you move on. So I'll glue these together and then we'll start looking at the fuselage. Okay, this is where things are going to start getting a little bit confusing, which I apologise for, but basically now I've got the wings and everything together, the next thing I need to do is start assembling the cockpit and a few other bits like the undercarriage and whatnot, because they all need to be painted before the fuselage goes together. So, so I'm going to do those bits first, and then we can start assembling a bit more of it. So yeah, this may go a bit haphazard, but just bear with me. Right, there's a few other bits I've got to put together, and then we can, I think, start possibly putting some paint on this thing. So I've been having fun with this. This isn't fitted together. This is all just mainly dry fit. I put the tail together, but the rest of it is all just dry fit at the moment, because what I've been doing is trying to get the nose balanced, because obviously in real life the real aircraft has this massive gun in the front that weighs the nose down. This doesn't have that, so you have to put a load of weight in the nose. The instructions say 45 to 50 grams, and I thought that seems like an awful lot, but I think they're actually not far off, because it's taken a lot to weigh the nose down. So I don't know if I can show you without taking it all apart, but if you look down inside the cockpit there, you can see I've basically filled up the base of the cockpit with well, actually, let me show you what I'm using. It's basically fishing weights. Oh, so these are fishing weights, and what I do is I put them, I wrap them in white tack, like cheap white tack from the pound shop, and use that to stick it all in place and stop them rattling about. So there's a big load of them in the bottom there. I don't know if you can see in there. I'm not sure if the camera's focused on it or not, but there's another big blob of it behind the cockpit. Obviously I've got the battery and the charging circuit in there as well to add to lend their weight, and then there's a little bit more right in the nose as well. So I'm hoping that will be sufficient. It does feel nose heavy now. I've still got to put the engines and that in, so we'll just have to wait and see. I can see now why they included that prop for the back, but now I've kind of got that done, we're kind of one step closer to actually trying to start to put this thing together. I think the next thing I need to do is start painting some of the interior parts, so let's have a look at that. Okay, another little change of plan. Yes, another one. I was looking at this, the way I've weighted this, and I wasn't overly happy with it. The trouble is, it needs so much weight in the nose of this that I'm not convinced this is going to work. So I decided to try something different. So I've got these. Now, these are wheel weights for a car. They're the if you have your tyres balanced on your car, these are the weights they stick on the wheels to balance them. So these come in 60 gram strips. So you've got 4 10 gram strips and then 4 5 gram strips for a total of 60 grams. And they're self-adhesive. They've got a sticky pad on the back, and they're made of nickel-plated steel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this stuff off, and I'm going to try and weight it with these instead. I'll put some in the fuselage and some on the nose here, and we'll see how well that works out. So what I'll do is I will cut in between these to separate them. Right, now let's have a think about this. So I think these ones are going to be too big to go in anywhere, but what I can do is where I've got this blob in the fuselage, I'll take this out, and I can put some of them behind. See that? I can put them on kind of like that. And if I put like all 60 grams on, although some of it's behind the cockpit, it should still work. So let's try putting some of these in here. You see, they'll just stay put, they won't rattle around inside. And I'll put one behind it. And actually, I think what I'll do is I'll stick them on like this, because then that way it will keep the weight more central. And I'll put all 60 grams on just to you know, a bit of belt and braces. So you see there's 30 grams there already. And so I can put these ones in here. So I'll put that one, actually no, I won't put that one there because there's a, yeah, see I've got to be careful here because the way this goes on, there's a lump here where the seat, the steps go. So I've got to make sure that I don't actually put anything wet that's going to get in the way of that. So let's get that, that goes there. So I think that will actually, no, I don't think that will actually go in there. So I'll put that one on like that there, and then it's not in the way. And then I'll put one on here. Like that. And one on here. Like that. So there's 15 grams there, so that's 45 grams. And I think what I'll do, I wonder if that will actually fit. See, that will go in there, but I don't know if it'll... See, I'm just trying to think if I put one in there, but I think I might put it on the other side because I don't want all the weight on one side of the aircraft, if you see what I mean. So I'll put this one on the other side. Where's the other half? There it is. Actually, I can't put the one on the other side because that's where the wheel well goes. So that won't work. Right, let's put this back together. So this is what you've got to be careful of when you just start sticking stuff in willy-nilly. You've got to think how it goes together. Right, that will fit in there. So I'll put that in there. And that will give us 55 grams, which should be more than enough. Right, let's just make sure that still goes in there, which it does. Right, so that's 55 grams, plus the fact we've got the battery and everything as well, so that should give us more than enough weight, and it's also much tidier. So that's that. Now we need to look at another bit on the front, on the undercarriage. Okay, so this is the front undercarriage strut, and this tiny little beast here is, oh, don't drop it, is the landing light. So, or I say landing light, it's a, you know, like a headlight. It's tiny, as you can see, but I'm going to try and get this light into it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole right through it, thread the wires through, and then run them up the landing strut and then in through into the fuselage to meet up with everything else. So I need to get a drill. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do first. I'll go through it with this smaller one first and give me a little pilot hole. That's not really going to work. How am I going to get hold of it? This is the trouble, is just trying to figure out a way to get hold of it. Let's try that, see what that does. Oh, that didn't help. That might be big enough. Right, that nearly went through straight as well. Very good, well done. Oh, so what I've got to be careful of is that it doesn't snap the thing off, and it is actually bending quite alarmingly. That is nearly through though. Right, there we go, that is through. So we've got a hole right through that now. And so now I should be able, with a bit of finagling, to get these wires through that hole. That's one. That's t'other. And right, like that. And obviously I'll have to bend it around a bit to get it in place, but it gives you the idea. And then I'll stick this all together and then show you what it all looks like. Right, so this is a bit weird because it's actually been a good couple of weeks have elapsed since the previous clip, and I have actually been struggling with this project. It's trying to, I think it's one of those things that because there's so much needs to happen at once because of the way I've changed the design of it for the electronics, it's kind of put me off a bit, and I've really struggled with this. But I need to get it done basically because I can't just leave it in the box. It's not, you know. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to assemble the rear undercarriage struts, and hopefully that will get me moving again. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to assemble these parts on the wing because I think it will make life a lot easier. I'll put that bit in first. Stay. And I've immediately put that bit on backwards because obviously okay, right, that goes in there, and then this piece goes I need to line it up with that hole. He says, not lining it up with the hole at all. Oh. That goes like that. I'll tell you what, I'm making a right dog's breakfast of this. Oh, right, now I'll do the other one. Okay, so I've got the rear, I was going to say suspension, undercarriage done, and I thought while I'm on a bit of a roll, I'm going to put the engines together as well, just because I can really. I mean, it might be better to paint these first, but I think the thing is with it, once it's together, you're not going to see these parts at all. I mean, it's like you can see it now, but once I put that on, see, you can barely see it. So it's we'll still be able to paint it. that goes like that. Oh, as he says as it falls off. That goes like that. Right, there we go, that's one engine together. And what I'm going to do, once it's dry, and I'll clean up the seams a little bit, but there's the painting instructions for these are quite complicated, and I think I'm going to do something a bit different, but I'll show you that when we get to that point. Let me put the other one together, and then we'll see what we're going to do from there. I thought I'd put the engine in the pod just so I know where it is. And look at the gap in that. You could put your hand through that. Good grief. Right, I've decided I'm going to paint the engines just because I can. So I'm going to give them a coat of this all-clad gloss black base in preparation for some airframe aluminium. The kit gives you all kinds of weird and wonderful instructions on how to paint the engines, but I'm just going to do them with this, and there's a couple of other bits I'm going to do that I'll show you afterwards to create some rather interesting effects with this lacquer, but that's next. There we go. I'll give this a little bit more and then we'll put the lacquer on. Right, now that the base coat is dry, we're going to put some of this airframe aluminium all-clad 2 lacquer on. This is very good stuff. That's not bad, is it? I'll do all these pieces and I'll show you what they look like. Right, there we go. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to go around the back of it with some of this. This is also all clad too, as you can see. This is jet exhaust, so I'll put a little bit of this on the back just to make it look a little bit more realistic. There you go, like that. Right, now there's one little trick I want to show you with this lacquer. This is Humbrol acrylic varnish. This is gloss. And it has an interesting reaction with this lacquer. Now, I can't really spray it in front of the camera because there's not really enough space. But if you just look at what that looks like now, it's very shiny and silver, yes. Now I'll give it a quick spray and you see what happens. There. You see? It's gone like almost like a gunmetal. And it works really well because it kind of it shades itself, it does everything. When that's dry, you'll be amazed at what that will look like. So yeah, I'm not going to spray it over the whole thing because I want the rest of it to stay the colour it is, but just for the veins on the front, that's absolutely perfect. So yeah, little tip for you. Right, so with the engines done, we're now going to move on to some of the interior parts. So XF19 Sky Grey, quite a lot of it. So I'll just kind of give you the highlights. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the cockpit components with this X22 clear. That's a gloss finish, just to seal it, and then we can put the cockpit decals on and weather it. Right, so I'm going to put the cockpit decals on, and I'm not going to spend too much time with this because we'll be looking at a lot of decals later, but one thing I wanted to mention specifically about cockpit decals, and I think I've touched on this before, but the thing is with these is they need to fit in specific places around the cockpit. And so what you'll find is, I don't know if I can show you that, I'm just trying to, there, if I catch that in the light, what you can see around the edge of each decal, there's like a clear part, and there's basically like a transfer over the top to protect it, which goes with it. And that transfer will stop the decal from fitting properly. So what you can do is take your knife and basically very carefully just go around the outline of the actual decal itself, and it only needs to be very, very light pressure. I mean, this thing is microns thick, but just go around it like that. And what that will do is when you take the decal off the paper, it won't have that border on it, which means it will fit in little spaces like that a lot better. So that's just a little tip for you. So I'll get these put on, and then we'll move on. Right, one thing I remember to do is I wanted to put a dot on the side of this on the trigger, but I've just had a distraction, so I might get this wrong, and if I do, it'll be their fault. You know you are. Sorry, children. There we go. Okay. Alright, I think we managed to get away with that one. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the cockpit with this black panel line, just to pick out some of the highlights, or lowlights I should say. I'm not sure how much of this you'll actually be able to see, but we'll do it anyway. And I'll use this dark brown for the seat itself, because it will go better with the khaki. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it all over, because I want to try and get like a texture effect on the seat, if I can. I don't know if it'll work or not, but we'll give it a go. But we'll put this on and let it dry, and then when we clean it up, we'll put some try and put some texture on it. Right, so that's had a chance to dry now, so I'm going to go over it with a bit of this Humbrol enamel thinner. So let's get some on a brush here. What I want to do is just kind of get the worst of it off. Let it streak a little bit. Just like that. Only takes a little bit. Now the interesting thing is going to be this seat, because as I mentioned, I want to clean up all the normal bits, and then turn my attention to the seat swab itself. Right. So what I'm going to do is, well, you can see it, but basically I'm just kind of like blotching the brush onto it, onto the seat swab, just to give us a little bit of a texture. What I also want to try and do, which is I think going to be tricky, but I'll just see how I go with it, is try and do it in such a way that it looks like the seat's like worn in places. So it's not quite so, it's basically so it's not quite so uniform. That's the idea. I don't know whether you can see that, but you can see it's quite nicely broken that up and left it slightly less uniform in colour. So I think that'll probably do us for that. So like I say, it's only a very subtle effect. It doesn't need a lot. But what I'll do is I'll finish these few bits off, and then I'll put a coat of matte varnish on them. Right, I think I've been putting this off long enough, but it's no good. I'm going to have to start putting this thing together. So the problem that I have is that I'm going to have to do this completely differently to the way the instructions say. In the instructions it says to put the fuselage together, then to put the cockpit in from the bottom, then to fit the front undercarriage, then the engine, then the tail, then the wings. I can't do it like that because I need to get all the electrics done first. So what I'm going to have to do is put the wings on before I can put the fuselage together, which is going to make the thing quite unwieldy, but there's no other choice. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to start putting, I'm going to have to put the wings on first, then fit all the electrics, then fit the undercarriage and the cockpit before I put the fuselage halves together. So let's put the wings on. Should I put the wings on first, or should I put the electrics in first? I'm going to have to put the wings on first because I need the wires for the electrics. I'll put the wings on first. Right, I think I've got this figured out now, how the best way to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the battery and the charging circuit together, and I'm going to then attach the output wires, keep them attached to this terminal block, and that will then make this one discrete unit, and I can fit that into the fuselage and then basically wire from that, if that makes sense. And then basically the lights can all be routed in, the wires all connected together, and then just plugged into the terminal block. So let's get this started. So the first thing we need to do is connect the battery to the charging circuit. Now this battery has 3 wires, as you can see. There's a black, a red and a white. The white wire we do not need, so we'll get rid of that for a start. Just clip that off at the battery end. And then the other 2 wires we do need, but what you want to be careful of when you cut these wires is that you cut them one at a time, because if you cut both of them together you'll short the battery out and you might damage it. So just cut them one at a time, like so. Plug we don't need. So now we can connect these to the charging board. So we've got battery positive, battery negative. So the red wire goes to the battery positive, the black wire goes to battery negative. pop that through there like that. I'll solder the back first just to make it a bit easier. Little dab of soldering paste. That. And we'll put the battery negative through and do the same thing. Alright, and that's our battery connected. So now we need a wire from the battery out to the switch. Now what you need to remember when you're doing this is that these wires coming out are now live, so don't let them touch, because it will do all kinds of horrible things to your setup. What you can do is just take a little bit of masking tape and just put it over a positive like that, and that will stop it from touching anything. Alright, there we go. So that's that done. And now we need to hot glue the battery into place like that. So I've got the hot glue gun here, conveniently on the wrong side of me. Oh, that's probably far too much glue. Right, so we'll just that in that way around, actually, like that, and push that into place. And now we want to take the charging circuit, and remembering the hole that we cut before, line that up with the hole so we know where it's got to go. Now we can test that by plugging in a USB cable, and we have a charging light, so that battery is charging, so that works, so that's good. So now we want to connect the live wire to the switch. Right, and then we want to take another piece of wire and go from the switch to the terminal block. Ideally, the live wire you really should put in the middle, it's just good practice, but in this case it doesn't matter because we're just creating a single circuit. So, and then we get another little bit of insulation and put that over there. This bit, I'll put it over there. Normally I'd use a hot air gun to do this, but I'm not putting hot air anywhere near this fuselage because it will melt. So I'll just use the soldering iron to do it. So now we can put these flashing LEDs at the top and bottom of the fuselage. I'm just going to bend that slightly so that it will fit in there better. I need to hot glue that in, which is going to be fun without burning my fingers. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Right, so I have glued both of those lights in as well. They're just hot glued in. And I've just quickly connected them up with the terminal block. And so now we have flashing blue lights. So the next thing I need to do is figure out something for the charging lights. but that shouldn't be too difficult. I'll show you a little trick for that. So for the charging lights, I'm going to use a piece of this frame. This is actually from the Swift that we just did. But what we want to do is, because we've got two status lights. Oh, hang on. There are two status lights here and here that show the charging status of the battery. Now obviously they're going to be inside the model, you won't be able to see them. So we want to bring them to the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom here, and I'm going to cut a piece of this off and glue it on, and that will help bring the light to the outside. So let me put it on and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so what I've done is I've just taken the corner of that frame, snipped the piece off, drilled a suitable sized hole in the fuselage, ran it through from the inside, and then hot glued it onto the top of both of the lights. And basically what that will happen now is if I plug this in, then obviously the light lights up, but this clear plastic now refracts the light, and oh, hopefully you can see that, but you can see it's red. It's not massively bright, but it doesn't need to be. And then obviously when it's charging and the blue light comes on, it will do the same thing. And so that means we can see what the status of the battery is. Now you will also notice that I have not cut it flush with the fuselage, and the reason for that is because we've still got a lot of painting to do, and so I'm going to leave this like that. It's a good idea to do it with any kind of fibre optics or anything like that, is leave them long, and then when you've finished all your painting, done all your finishes and everything else, then you can come back in with your flush cutters and just snip it off flush with the fuselage, and you don't have to mask it. So very clever. Okay, so the next step is I need to stick the cockpit in, because normally you put the fuselage together and then insert the cockpit from the bottom. Now we can't do that because I need to put the front undercarriage on so that I can run the wires in. So I'm going to put this in now from the side, I'll get it in place, and stick that in, and then we can put the front undercarriage on like that. Now we want this, and that needs to go on here. And so this is going to be kind of awkward because obviously it's supposed to all go together once the fuselage is in place, is together, but unfortunately there is no real other option. Right, so now we can start putting the wings and the wiring in for those as well. Okay, let's get this wing put on, preferably without knocking anything else off. So I need to put the wires through. Oh, this is going to be really awkward. Never mind. Right, let's pop that through there. And you'll have to excuse me if my hands get in the way, but obviously you can see this is a bit awkward. Oh, go through. Of course it doesn't help with this one because it's got the light in front of it, which isn't helping. Oh. Right, that's that. And then let's slide that in there like that. So one good thing about these wires being so thin is they will actually go through with the through the slot. So right, okay, let's stick that on. I'm trying to keep this under the camera and it's not easy. Right, that's that one on. So one of the problems with this wire, because it's so thin, it's getting the insulation off. because if you try and use like a wire strip or something, it just rips the wire apart. So I'm going to use a lighter and just burn it off like that. There you go. So now I've got to join all these wires together. These wires are so thin and so delicate, it's absurd. But they kind of need to be, unfortunately. I think what I'm going to try and do is solder these together and then join them to the other ones. Right. Let's try and get these back in here. Right, now this is either going to work or we're going to blow all the LEDs. That's lit. That's lit. Right, that's working. I'm going to turn it off. Wonderful stuff. Now we've got to glue the fuselage together. Right, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but what I've got to do now is get all these wires inside, and there's a big blob of glue there that needs to go, because that's not going to help. Oh, this is going to be ridiculous. Right, that's that. Oh. Oh, there is a blob of glue there, hot glue, which is stopping it from going together. Okay, let's start from here and work our way backwards. Right, I'll get this all glued together and then we'll see what it looks like. Right, that's got the the fuselage together. There are a couple of little gaps at the top here. I think what's happened is the where I've put the hot glue on it, it's actually expanded slightly, and it's pinching on the LED, but that's fine. A little bit of filler will solve that. And I mean, the joints will need to be filled anyway, so that's okay. And the same on the bottom as well. But again, it's not really the end of the world. The main thing is it still all lights up. So, which is good. I don't want to turn it on too much, quite frankly, because one of the things that worries me is these little tiny LEDs. I don't want them to burn out. They shouldn't do, but you know. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave this and let it set up for a while, and then move on. This is actually going better. The thing is, now I've got this bit done, I feel a lot better about the whole thing, and it's not as unwieldy as I feared it would be. But anyway, yeah, we'll let that set up and then we'll move on. Okay, so I've just put the tail together properly, and I'm going to put the engines, the engines into the cowlings. So for that, I'm going to use Revel Contactor Professional, because I think it'll be a bit easier. Just pop that in there, he says, as it doesn't pop in there. There we go. Right, that one goes in there. This is one of those situations where thin glue is, you could do it, but this is probably easier. Like that. Fold those over. In fact, actually, some of that on there as well. There we go. And what I'll do is when the fuselage is dry, I'll put these on. Right, so this has had a chance to set up a bit now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the tail now and the engines. So right, that goes in like that. Careful with this because now there's so much weight in the nose that it's quite difficult to hold it. Plus the fact this thing is an absolute beast in terms of size. That's why I'm shooting it on this camera, not the normal one. Right, let's put that down like that. Okay, now let's put the engines on. I think, right, there you go, like that. Oh, it won't sit square, I'll have to hold it. Right. Do you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I might actually wrap this video up here, because I think this is a good place. This is going to be way too long to be a single part, a one-part video. So let's let these bits set up, and then we'll wrap this up and talk about what we're going to do next. Right, and here is our kind of half-finished article. So yeah, I've basically got the construction complete. I'll finish off a few bits, fill all the gaps and sand those, because I'm sure nobody wants to sit and watch me do that for hours on end. In the next video we'll look at actually putting the paint, finish, decals and all that kind of thing on it. But so far it's coming out quite well. Let's see if I can turn the lights on without breaking anything. Yeah, doesn't look too bad, does it? Right, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.